Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that tensions have shattered, alliances have shifted, and buried secrets claw their way to the surface. It starts on Monday, July 21st, when Jacob Hawthorne is abruptly forced to halt his investigation, a move that sends shockwaves through his circle and sets loose a chain reaction of betrayal and resentment. Elon Hawthorne, his own father, coldly delivers the blow. Elon's decision isn't impulsive. Behind it stands Marcel Malone, pulling strings in the shadows. He has insisted, subtly but firmly, that Jacob's involvement must end after all. Shifting focus away from Jacob preserves hidden agendas they both hold dear. When Jacob finally uncovers this manipulation, Marcel, whispering into Elon's ear like a puppeteer, is seething. The discovery that his father may have knowingly betrayed him, that his investigation into Martin's fate is being controlled by a corrupt alliance, turns Jacob's anger into a quiet, furious resolve. He can no longer trust Elon, nor Marcel. And in that collapse of trust lies the first fracture of an even deeper, more powerful scheme. Nicole's simmering fury threads through the next revelation. The specter of Martin's past crimes looms once again. Nicole wants to explode, to expose every culpable party. But standing between her and open rebellion is Anita Dupree, Nicole's mother. Anita, wise and firm, restrains Nicole's rage. She knows that exploding into public accusations will backfire. Both Ted Richardson and Anita have long been aware of the crimes committed by Martin 2 years ago. Anita, because of her close connection to Martin. Ted, because he was involved with professional and personal stakes. In private meetings with Nicole, the two of them caution against swift reaction. Anita reminds Nicole that lashing out angrily before collecting irrefutable evidence will plunge them into chaos. Still, Nicole can't be calmed. As more secrets tumble out, their world fractures. Among them, Ted Richardson is revealed not only as someone who enabled Martin's enemies to return, but as an active architect of the renewed threat. He leaked private information, armed the foes of Martin, all of it with the intention of revisiting a long-standing score. Anita, fiercely protective of her daughter, gives Nicole the painful context but also demands composure. She refuses to let Nicole escalate matters before the truth is firmly in their hands. Nicole listens, but only just. Her heart races. Then comes the bombshell. Nicole discovers that one of her own children is actually the child of Ted Richardson and Leslie Tomasa's secret affair from the recent past. The shock bends her world. She confronts Ted and Leslie in the silence of the night, demanding answers. Was Martin, quietly in the wings, the biological child? The implications are devastating. It would fracture the family's emotional core, reconceiving parentage, lineage, love. Is Martin truly Ted's son? Nicole reels from the notion. The pain is raw. Every familial relationship suddenly teeters on collapse. Nicole vows to herself that this secret must surface, but only when she's sure. She knows the timing must be precise to avoid total implosion. Meanwhile, Martin's own life seems unraveling. He has been forcibly removed from the Hawthorne family estate by Smitty, a trusted enforcer. Cast out, Martin finds himself first at Vernon's home. Vernon, his great-uncle figure, whose loyalty once shielded Martin, now faces the fallout. Vernon opens his doors, but also opens his conscience. Nicole arrives at Vernon's doorstep, wild-eyed and trembling with emotion. She demands the truth. Vernon begs forgiveness, never meant to let Martin be seen as anything but family. As he confesses, he admits he once lied, once protected Martin from scrutiny in the past, letting him slid away from justice. That lie now binds them all. Nicole's fury ignites. She lunges, she screams. Without Anita's physical intervention, she might have struck both Vernon and Martin, as the betrayal cuts deep. Vernon begins to tremble under her gaze, but Anita steps in, placing herself protectively between mother, daughter, great-uncle, and nephew alike, demanding calm. Later that evening, Vanessa McBride approaches Nicole with another whisper of truth. She recounts an odd press conference Martin held the day prior, strange, tight-lipped, abruptly closed after only minutes. Martin claimed a family emergency forced the shutdown. Vanessa shares this because she cares, but also inadvertently fans the flames. Nicole sees in this hint the keys to what's being hidden. But Anita will hear about it through other channels, and she'll see Vanessa as the catalyst, the one whose honest words triggered Nicole's renewed outrage. Nicole now sees Vanessa as both confidant and accidental instigator. Something shifts in Anita's eyes. Nicole notes it. Another fracture. This domino effect spreads further when Samantha Richardson begs Smitty to let Martin return home. Samantha Martin's estranged half-sister and her younger brother Tyrell are desperate to have Martin back in the family fold. Smitty refuses. He cites safety concerns. Martin's presence endangers Smitty himself, Samantha, Tyrell, and possibly the entire neighborhood. Samantha pleads tearfully, recounting how the family's fractured and how Martin needs them. Tyrell, though only a child, speaks up too. "I don't want to play with strangers anymore," he says, recalling a dangerous game of chess he played with Kenny. Tyrell reminds them how Kenny had threatened him during that encounter and how Martin saved him at the last second. Tyrell says, "If Martin isn't with us, who will protect me?" This strikes Smitty hard. Amidst this, Ted Richardson's deeper betrayal becomes clearer. He didn't just enable Enemish orchestrated key exchanges with Leslie Thomas that permitted them to surveil Martin. Now Nicole pieces it all together. The affair between Ted and Leslie wasn't just emotional, it was logistical. Leslie had access to Martin's documents. Ted controlled local influence to shield them. Martin has been unwittingly tracked. Nicole, assembling the truth, sets her sights. There will be confrontation. Back at the Hawthorne estate, Elon and Marcel finalize their pact. Marcel ensures Elon will remain publicly distant from the investigation. In return, Elon secures Marcel's deal to maintain control over Martin's assets and legacy. Martin cut off, Corneritas now enmeshed in a war he never started. Jacob, furious at betrayal and stymied by fear from Elon, begins searching for alternative levers of power. He realizes he may need to ally with Nicole, even though their bond has frayed. Their shared enemy, Elon, Marcel, Ted, Leslie. Their shared thirst, truth, justice. Jacob reaches out to Nicole in coded messages. She holds back, but the connection flickers. Meanwhile, Nicole paces the halls of Anita's home long into the night. Anita says little. Her face is a slate of regret. Regret that she had to restrain her daughter. Regret that the secret had grown so powerful. Nicole, half sobbing, half yelling, says, "If our family tears itself apart, it will be on your hands too." Anita's silence cuts deeper than speech. She knows the word mother weighs her down. She cannot allow another death, another destruction, but she also cannot stop the truth. She closes her eyes and whispers, "I wish I could undo everything." In the midnight hours, Vanessa McBride sits in her car, staring at her phone. A text pops up. Anita says we need to talk. Not good for you. Vanessa inhales sharply. She knows Anita will turn on her soon. And inside the walls of the Hawthorne estate, Martin lays awake on Vernon's couch, haunted by every conversation. He knows that this descent will not stop until someone or something finally snaps, and he wonders if that snap will come from inside his own soul. Jacob finally meets with Marcel Malone alone. He confronts him bluntly. Was Marcel behind Elon's order to drop the case? Marcel replies with a calm, measured tone, "I did what needed to be done to prevent you from dragging people into heat that could burn them." Jacob leans forward. "Whose people, Marcel? Yours? Elon's?" Marcel's reply, "We all have to survive." Jacob understands. This is bigger than the investigation. It's about preserving power. He watches Marcel carefully. He shows no fear. Jacob realizes that if he wants to move forward, he must find allies from unlikely place 7, possibly from within the same family that betrayed him. Nicole in turn tracks Leslie Thomas to a secluded cabin outside town. She storms in. Leslie falls to her knees, admitting everything, the affair, the surveillance, the lies. Leslie's voice trembles. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I fell in love. I wanted Martin safe. I thought Ted would protect him, but it just made things worse. Nicole listens, an icy calm enveloping her. She steps back, the truth sinking into her blood. She leaves without a word. This is her turning point. She now has both sides of the story. There will be reckoning. As Monday bleeds into Tuesday morning, each player stands poised on the edge of ruin or redemption. Elon's empire trembles. Marcel's plan has ignited more flames than he bargained for. Ted and Leslie tremble under the weight of exposed sin. Smitty stands almost alone in protecting Samantha, Tyrell, and the scattered Hawthorns. Vanessa braces for confrontation. Vernon faces judgment. And Jacob and Nicole, once disconnected by layers of betrayal, hover in uneasy cessation, discovering that maybe the only way forward is together, that the collapse of the past might only make room for a new kind of alliance. The air hung heavy over the Hawthorne estate. The storm of secrets had not passed yet, it had only begun to tear through the walls, seeping into every conversation, every hushed breath. Nicole had left Leslie's cabin with her fists clenched and her mind ablaze. What she had learned wasn't just betrayal, it was a blueprint of everything that had been orchestrated behind her back. She drove in silence, her gaze fixed on the road, but her thoughts raced to Martin, to Ted, to the child she now suspected was not Martin's sibling, but his half-brother, or worse, his son. Back at Vernon's home, Martin sat in the dark, the television on but muted. He replayed every word Nicole had screamed at him, every accusation Vernon had admitted to, and it weighed on him like a chain. He didn't know how to ask for forgiveness, because he wasn't sure forgiveness was what he deserved. Vernon moved quietly in the kitchen, the smell of old coffee lingering in the air, but there was no warmth in it. Just silence, thick and dry. Vernon could barely look Martin in the eye. His own guilt was growing teeth. Nicole made her way to Anita's house again, this time not with fury, but resolve. Her mother stood waiting in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes tired. Nicole said nothing at first, just walked inside and sat down. "You were right," she finally whispered. Anita's eyes narrowed. "About what?" Nicole looked up. "The damage truth can do when it's not ready." Anita sat beside her, for the first time not as a matriarch, but simply a mother who had long feared what was now unfolding. "But we're past that now," Nicole said. "It's already broken. Now we make sure everyone pays for what they've done." At that moment, Vanessa McBride was packing a bag. She'd received 3 calls from a blocked number, 1 voicemail with nothing but silence, and a note slipped under her windshield that simply read, "Keep talking and you're next." She knew it was Anita. Not because Anita was cruel, but because Anita protected her legacy with the same intensity Nicole now used to tear it down. Vanessa wasn't about to wait for a warning shot to turn into something worse. But even as she zipped up her suitcase, her conscience burned. Should she leave without giving Nicole the rest of the story? What she hadn't told her was this: Martin's press conference wasn't just interrupted, it was staged. Someone wanted it shut down. Someone who feared what Martin had to say. Meanwhile, Samantha Richardson had begun visiting Martin at Vernon's, defying Smitty's orders. She sat with Martin on the porch, her presence both comforting and sharp. "You should never have been thrown out," she told him. "That wasn't justice. That was fear." Martin, barely speaking, just nodded. She pressed on. "Tyrell hasn't slept in days. He won't talk to me. He won't eat unless I pretend you're coming back. You matter to us." Martin turned to her, finally asking, "Why would you still believe in me?" Samantha gave a sad smile. "Because if I don't, who will?" Smitty found out about the visits. His frustration boiled over not just at Samantha, but at the entire house. He ranted about safety, about order, about how Martin's presence put everything at risk. But deep down, Smitty wasn't afraid of Martin. He was afraid of what Martin represented: the loss of control, the unraveling of a carefully contained story. Smitty remembered the day Kenny came for Tyrell, how Martin's return had been the only thing standing between the boy and disaster. That memory haunted him. He'd built rules to keep everyone safe, but now those rules were tearing them apart. Ted Richardson, on the other hand, was slowly losing ground. Nicole had stopped answering his calls. Leslie refused to meet with him again. Rumors were circulating, and worse, Elon had begun distancing himself from Ted entirely. At a private gathering with Marcel Malone, Elon made a subtle yet brutal move. He excluded Ted from the inner circle. Marcel didn't even blink. Elon announced that new decisions would be made, and past mistakes would not be repeated. Ted stood there, holding a glass of bourbon, his fingers trembling, realizing that in trying to burn Martin, he'd incinerated himself. Marcel was more than content to let Ted spiral. He had bigger plans. With Elon's full cooperation, Marcel wanted to shift public focus from Martin's scandals to Jacob's missteps. They began planting stories, feeding friendly reporters, crafting a narrative that Jacob's obsession with the case had made him reckless, even dangerous. It worked. Within days, whispers spread across the community that Jacob had lost it, that he was too close to the fire to see the truth clearly. But Jacob wasn't shaken. He expected the attack. What he didn't expect was who came to warn him: Nicole. She met him in a parked car just outside the town limits. No words at first. Just shared silence. Then she spoke. "They're coming for you next." Marcel's twisting it all. Elon's in too deep to back out now. "They'll bury you if you don't move fast." Jacob gave a dry laugh. "Already feels like I'm 6 feet under." Nicole reached into her purse and handed him a file. Inside were names, dates, transcripts, records of everything Leslie had told her, everything Vernon had confessed, everything Martin had tried to say before being silenced. Jacob's eyes scanned the pages. "This is it," he muttered. Nicole nodded. "It's enough to blow the whole thing open." But time was running out. Vanessa was gone. No one had heard from her in over 24 hours. Leslie had been pulled out of town under the guise of a business trip, likely forced by Marcel or Ted to keep her quiet. Vernon was under house arrest, not legally, but emotionally watched by people close to Elon, subtly threatened into silence. Samantha's visits were being monitored. Smitty now felt trapped in his own rules. And Tyrell, frightened Tyrell, was starting to understand too much. Martin, meanwhile, prepared to speak. Not to the press. Not to the police. But to Nicole. He sat across from her in Vernon's living room. "You want the whole story?" he asked. She nodded. He told her about the cover-up, about the accident 2 years ago, about what really happened the night Kenny died. It hadn't been premeditated, it had been panic, self-defense, fear. But the aftermath, the silence, the way Elon and Marcel had swept it all away, that had been calculated. And now, Kenny's allies were back for revenge, their plan carefully reactivated by Ted, who believed Martin would destroy the family's name if left unchecked. Nicole listened. No interruptions. No tears. Just cold, sharp processing. "They used you," she said finally. "And now they're afraid you'll talk." Martin looked down. "I already did. At that press conference." Nicole leaned forward. "What did you say?" Martin met her gaze. "I said I wasn't the villain. That sometimes survival turns you into something you don't recognize." That's when they cut the mic. The final move came from Jacob. Armed with Nicole's file, he leaked the documents to a contact outside the state, someone who owed him a favor. Within hours, pieces of the truth began surfacing online. At first, dismissed as conspiracy. But then, evidence. Hard proof. Names and places. Ted's involvement. Elon's knowledge. Marcel's orchestration. The story exploded. Anita stood in her kitchen, watching the news break. Her expression unreadable. Nicole entered the room behind her. "You knew it would come to this," she said. Anita replied, "I hoped it wouldn't." Nicole placed a hand on her mother's shoulder. "But now we finish it." And finish it they would. Because now the truth wasn't just dangerous. It was public. And for the first time, everyone had to answer for what they had done. In the aftermath of the public leak, silence briefly swept across the town like a stunned breath held too long. The calm before the storm didn't last. By morning, headlines were everywhere. Hawthorne legacy crumbles under scandal. Power broker Marcel Malone implicated in criminal cover-up. Martin, Hero or killer? The press no longer needed speculation, they had receipts. And with proof in their hands, the shields Elon and Marcel had built began to collapse. Elon held a press conference to try and seize control of the narrative. He stood stiffly behind a podium, flanked by lawyers and PR handlers. But the media didn't buy it. Questions flew like daggers about Jacob, about Martin, about the alleged manipulation of public records, even about Nicole's child and Ted's affair. Elon, flustered, ended the briefing early, escorted out as cameras flashed. His reputation, the cornerstone of his power, shattered under the weight of everything he'd hidden. Marcel didn't go down so easily. He vanished from public view, but not from influence. His allies in law enforcement tried to delay the investigation, suppress warrants, smear whistleblowers. For a moment, it looked like he might escape. But Jacob anticipated this. He and Nicole, working in lockstep, handed the final package of evidence: phone calls, financial records, encrypted emails directly to the state attorney. A warrant was signed within 48 hours. Marcel was arrested on the outskirts of the city, trying to board a private jet. Meanwhile, Ted Richardson was forced to resign from every public board he'd served on. When confronted by Anita, he tried to salvage some dignity. "I did it for the family," he said. But Anita, with steel in her voice, replied, "No. You did it for yourself. And we all paid the price." Leslie Thomas fled the town entirely, leaving behind her house and whatever claim she might have had to the child that now bore too many questions. DNA tests would eventually confirm what Nicole feared. One of her children was Martin's half-brother, not sibling. And Ted was the father. Nicole chose not to reveal which child. The family had endured enough. Some truths, she realized, no longer needed to be shouted, they just needed to be understood, privately, painfully. Martin returned home, not as a son or a savior, but as a man ready to rebuild. Samantha and Tyrell welcomed him. Smitty, begrudging but honest, apologized. "I judged you on what I feared, not what I knew," he said. Martin didn't respond, just nodded. Tyrell ran to him, chessboard in hand. "You promised we'd play," he said. Martin smiled. "Let's play now." Vernon's health began to decline in the weeks that followed. Nicole visited often, sometimes with her mother, sometimes alone. She never forgave him, not fully, but she did something Vernon hadn't expected. She listened. He told her the whole truth about the first cover-up, how it had started with a bad decision and spiraled into something monstrous. "I thought I was protecting everyone," he said. "But I only protected the lie." Vanessa McBride resurfaced to testify in Marcel's trial. She stood firm despite threats, reading aloud from her notes. Anita attended the hearing, sitting in the back, quiet. After Vanessa stepped down from the stand, they exchanged a glance. No words. Just recognition. Two women who had tried to contain a fire and got burned anyway. As for Jacob, his future remained uncertain. Though vindicated, he had lost trust in every institution around him. He declined all interview requests, stepped back from public service, and moved to a cabin outside town, the same one Leslie had once used as a retreat. Nicole visited him one evening, bringing coffee and silence. "You still think you did the right thing?" she asked. Jacob stared out at the forest. "No. I think I did what had to be done. Right or wrong, that line stopped mattering a long time ago." Nicole nodded. "Then maybe we both did what we had to do." They sat together on the porch as the sun dipped behind the trees. Neither spoke again. Not that night. Not for a long time. When the trial concluded, Marcel was sentenced to 15 years for conspiracy, obstruction, and fraud. Elon disappeared from public life entirely. Some said he moved to a remote villa in Argentina. Others believed he was still pulling strings somewhere in the shadows. No one really knew. The Richardson family began to rebuild, Samantha taking over her father's abandoned charity work and turning it into something real, honest. Tyrell began writing, chronicling the events in a story he called The King's Gambit, naming it after the chess match that changed his life. Nicole helped him write it, every page like a salve. Martin took a job teaching at a local school. Not science, not law literature. He wanted to help people tell their stories, to give them the tools to speak, even when the world tried to silence them. When asked why, he simply said, "Because someone gave me a second chance. I want to do the same." And Anita? She remained the center of what was left of the family. Quieter now. Softer. But still vigilant. She never forgot what happened. But she finally allowed herself to move forward, one guarded step at a time. The town moved on. Slowly. Awkwardly. Not forgetting, but learning. The gates that had once kept the truth locked away had finally swung open. And though the past had scarred them all, the future imperfect, uncertain was theirs to rebuild. What came next wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't healing. It was something rawer, more honest. It was survival. And that would be enough for now.